Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm with the amazing Lisa Johnson. Now, I'm not her stalker. I discovered her probably about just over a year ago, I think, 18 months ago. Never heard of this woman, and she pounded into my remit, and suddenly I see this person. I think, who on earth is this woman? And then over the last 18 months I've got to know her. I've done her programs and everything, and I thought it would be great to get her onto my podcast because she epitomizes everything that I want to share with my audience. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks. What a nice intro. I like that I pounded in. It's like, I'm here.
Yeah. So obviously, you've got multiple businesses, and we're going to come on to that in a minute. But I want to highlight to people that really you started from nothing. You started as a single mom, baby twins, not just one, but twins. You've followed a similar path to myself, two young boys on my own, went to law school, did a law degree. What made you pick the law degree? What was it that sort of made you go that way?
The whole reason for that was because this is going to get a bit dark now, but at that time, basically I had been sacked from my first job, my first proper job, because I was being bullied there, and he couldn't sack all of the other women in the factory. So it was just me and he did admit that. He said, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm worried about your safety and I can't get rid of everyone else. So I'm going to have to get rid of you. And that night I went home and I was like, proper, like not wanting to be here, and I gave myself a test. So I was like, you can stay and we will see if everybody's wrong about you being stupid, but you have to give yourself a test that's hard, and if you pass that test you can stay on this earth, and if you don't pass that test it's permission to go. And I thought, well, what can I do that's hard? And I thought, well, I didn't even get any GCSEs or anything, so a degree seems like a good idea. And then I was like, well, what's the hardest degree? So I asked people, and people were like medicine or law, had no interest in medicine, but kind of knew that I probably shouldn't have been sacked for being bullied. And so went the legal route. And that's the only reason I did it. And I did that law degree while working full time as an office junior for 4 years. And that's why I'm still here, because I was one mark away from a first.
It's funny, the triggers that make you do a law degree. I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, but I couldn't be a doctor because I hadn't got any qualifications. So I went down the legal route. I carried on and became a solicitor. But so you started your first business, and you're a wedding planner, and you got to learn about business. Now, I'm sure you made mistakes along the way. I call them learning curves. But tell us about some of the early things that maybe that you realised that, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, or...
Oh my God, that first... So it was only 10 years ago that I started. I was thinking about this. The wedding planning business was 10 years ago. And I made every mistake that you could possibly make. I didn't know anything about business. No, I didn't even know anyone in business. I just kind of thought, well, I'm going to have to do this because I need to get out of 35 grand's worth of debt, and I've got 2 kids and I'm going to have to do it. So I did. And I made all the mistakes. So I thought that the best way to make money was to undercut everybody else who is a wedding planner. Because to me, that seemed like what you do. The cheapest one will surely win. I obviously know now with ideal clients and everything else that that's ridiculous. That was the other thing I did wrong. I didn't know anything about ideal client. So I just tried to get anyone that wants to get married, which obviously is ridiculous because there's so many different types of people out there. And so it wasn't until I honed in on like who exactly I wanted to work with that I started to actually make money. That first year, I had 13 full planning weddings. They take 250 hours a wedding. And I was making at the end of that year £1.15 an hour. That's how bad I was at business in that first year. I just didn't know anything. I didn't know my money mindset was having an effect. I just didn't know how to do a marketing plan, didn't know about freebies and email lists or anything. And when I look back now, I'm like, how did you even get those 13 full planning weddings? But then I think the reason was I wasn't charging anything.
Do you think people come out of full-time employment, though, and see what they were paid an hour and almost pitch themselves at that level, forgetting that they've got all the overheads as well?
Yeah. And you forget that it's not just your time. Like, people charge for their time rather than their experience. And that's not the way to do it. I always say, a bomb disposal unit person doesn't charge you for the 1 minute it takes to cut the wire. It's the fact that he knows which wire to cut. And that's the same. Like, people pay you for your experience in knowing how to plan a wedding or knowing how to help people in business or whatever it is. They're not paying you because they get an hour. In fact, most people would like to know how to do something in the least amount of time possible and would pay you a lot more to tell them in 5 minutes what you could tell them in an hour. So time has nothing to do with it.
We'll come on to that in a bit about your new business. So you ran the wedding planning business, and then was it around the pandemic time that you started with OTM and everything, or was it
earlier than that? It was 2018-19 that I started. 2018, because I was telling everyone about business and then realized that actually the way to do things was passive and semi-passive income and, having courses and memberships. And as soon as I knew that, after making that first million in the second year, I had realized very quickly the way forward is not trading time for money. So I was telling all these people, all these clients, look, stop doing what I was telling you to do before, which is take one-on-one clients, and instead do some stuff online, bring it online, you can make more money. And they were like, yeah, one day I'll do that. Sounds like a good idea one day, but I'm full with one-to-one clients at the moment. And I couldn't get through to them that you're full with one-to-one clients, which is why you need to do this, because you've hit an income ceiling. I couldn't seem to make people see this. And then in 2020, COVID hit. Suddenly everybody wanted to come online, and there I was. And so that was my best year. They came online. Everyone came online. And then in 2022, when everyone could go back, no one did. They were all like, now we see what you mean. We're making a lot more money online. But it took that event to make people realize they should do it. And after that, then they had realized. And then it was easier for me to get clients.
Yeah. And I mean, I was running a local business up until the pandemic, went online, created a membership, and then suddenly I got a national audience.
There you go.
It's a different model. It's a different way of working. What I want to talk about is that sometimes people think they can only do one thing. They've got to, you hear all this, stay in your own lane, do your own thing. You can only do one thing at once. Now, you've gone from Lisa Johnson, you built up your personal brand, and I've been spouting on about personal brand for over a decade, but people, what's personal brand? They didn't really get it. Yeah. But my belief is that it doesn't matter what you sell. You could be selling sweets on the market one day and cars in a showroom. If people buy into you as an individual, if you've got a personal brand that people know, like, and trust, they gravitate towards you. So tell us a little bit about how you built up that personal brand.
So I didn't really understand personal brand at the beginning. I thought you found a gap in the market and sold that thing. And then realized by watching others that wasn't true. One of the first people I saw do this was Jenna Kutcher. So Jenna Kutcher was a coach, and I used to look at her and go, well, she's a coach and she's doing okay. And then she started talking about herself more, and it was very know, like, and trust stuff, like stuff that made me gravitate towards her, stuff that I could relate to. And suddenly she got massive and she was selling all sorts of things. So she went from being a coach to selling jewelry, and then she stopped selling jewelry and she started selling a condo. And then, after the condo, she was doing Pinterest. And I was like, she's doing all these different things. And I realized it was because everything she talked about was things that people could relate to. And I realized that was personal brand. It was just that it didn't really matter what she sold. She could sell anything. People would still buy it because they were buying her. They weren't buying a product. They were buying her, and they were buying stories. And that made me realize, okay, so I need to stop talking about just the thing that I sell, which at the time was passive income, and start talking about the things that I actually care about, which I call secondary messaging, the things that I believe in. So started talking about some of the darker side of what goes on in this online world that I had been seething about for so long and not saying anything because I was afraid to be cancelled. So things like the manipulative marketing that people do, the FOMO marketing, the tactics, all of the spiritual stuff that can get very messy, the pyramid schemes. And I just started talking about them to warn people away from them and to tell them different ways in which they could make the same amount of money but being able to sleep at night. And then things changed for me. Then suddenly I became a personal brand, because all of those people that agreed with me, now don't get me wrong, 50%, maybe even more, didn't agree that I was doing this. And they were like, you're putting people down. You shouldn't be talking about this kind of stuff. And I repelled them. They were usually the people that also were doing things not in integrity, because it was highlighting what they were doing that made them feel uncomfortable. But the ones that had been burned, the ones that had seen this and hadn't wanted to be in the industry because they didn't want to have to use these tactics, they gravitated towards me because they were like, okay, someone's talking my language. Someone also is showing me a way that I don't have to do these things that I felt really uncomfortable with doing. And so it worked. And I think that I teach now about secondary messaging and actually living life as if you've already been cancelled, because then you will start saying the things that you really want to say. And even if 95% of people don't like that, the 5% who really agree with you will buy everything you do.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first started to listen to you and thinking, who's this woman? What's she on about? But it was the fact that you were bringing in those personal anecdotes. It's the fact you talked about those things that mattered to you. It was your honesty, and I think it was your transparency that came across to me. And that honesty is one of my core values. It goes right through me. And if people can't be honest about what they do, then there's something, this face that people put on, they're not real and authentic. And I think
you can tell, can't you, when someone is putting on that face and when they're not real.
Yeah. And I think, I constantly go on about being authentic. I talk about the shit that goes on in my life. I talk about my mum escaping from care homes and things like that. So you have to be real, because business is not a smooth line. It's a roller coaster. It's ups, downs, curveballs. You have to be prepared to, go with the moment sometimes. You've got challenges, you've shared your challenges, but people see, or some people might look at it and say, oh, well, she's going on holiday. She's always doing nice things. You work really hard behind the scenes, don't you?
Yeah, not only do I work really hard, I share the fact that I have chronic illnesses, because I was that person that saw these curated feeds and went, God, no wonder they can do it though. They don't have any issues in their life. It's so easy for them. And it made me think, well, I do have issues, so I can't do it. And so I vowed very early on that I was going to be transparent about everything that happens, because I want people to realize you can still be a success with problems. And we all have problems. Even those people that you see that seem not to have, they definitely do have. I've met them all. Like, they do. They just don't talk about them. And, I have so many issues. I have a blended family. That's never always going to go smoothly. I have chronic illnesses where sometimes I can't breathe. I've had issues with kids. Like, one of my kids has really bad anxiety. And so we're constantly working on that. I've had trolling, I've had bullying. You've seen all of that because I talk about it all. And it's not that it only happens to me. It happens to a lot of other 7, 8, 9-figure business owners. They're just not talking about it because they think it makes them seem weak. I don't think it makes me seem weak. I think it makes me seem human. And if I wanted to buy from somebody, I would want to buy from somebody that I could relate to and that was human, not from some perfect being. Like, that would just make me feel very intimidated. And so I've always just told the truth about it all. And sometimes that gets me in trouble, telling the truth. But most of the time, it means I can sleep at night, and I'd prefer that.
Yeah. I love your trolling tactic, your new trolling tactic, having the T-shirts made of the trolling comments and raising money for charity, for your bullying charity. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, it's changed everything, not just for me, but for others. Like, I didn't realize how much that would change how I reframed being trolled. Like, I knew I had to do something, because every time you get a trolling comment in, you're just like, oh, here's another one. And even if you really try not to let it affect you at all, I'm sure it must go in there somewhere and affect your nervous system in some way. And so I was like, what can I do to change this? And by trying to pick the best, which are obviously the worst comments, and turning them into a T-shirt, it meant that now when I get trolled, I'm looking for the comment that I can use for the T-shirt. And somebody came up to me last week and said, I got trolled at last. And there was a comment, and I think we can use it for a t-shirt. And they were so happy. And I thought how that has changed from us worrying about being trolled to now us waiting for it so that we can actually do something with it.
Because you get that negative comment, it takes you right down, and then all those my monkeys come into effect, and you think, no, I'm not any good, that's the truth, and you talk yourself out of doing what you're doing. But the way you flip that completely has helped other people as well, which I think is absolutely great. So you're known for OTM, one to many. That's your big signature course. Yeah. And you were running that as Lisa Johnson. And then last year you switched everything to that strategy company. What was the rationale behind that?
The rationale was really because I started this business as me. It feels unfair these days and not very transparent to keep pretending that it's me. I have a team of 12. That team do a lot, and they're front facing. You know, everyone knows who's in my team. I've always made them front facing because I want them to get the credit that they deserve. It's not me that's doing all of this stuff. It's all of us together. And so rather than keep calling it like Lisa Johnson, because it was my company, it needed a name that reflected that we're all in it. And so we called it That Strategy Co, because we all do different things in it. You know, I have people that teach courses in this and I'm not even in. So it's not fair to put my name on it anymore. And so we did that, and it's worked really well. I've still got my personal brand. You know, when I speak on stages or when I write a book or I'm on a podcast, it's me that's there as my personal brand. But when people are buying courses from us, including one-to-many, they're buying it from the company. They're not buying it from me anymore, which feels more honest.
Yeah, they're probably buying it from you as well, though. I think your personal brand is what drives the traffic to that. And I love the fact that you're actually there, you're in your groups, you're in your membership, and you know, people can actually see you, which I think is really important.
Yeah, when people message me on Instagram, they're always really surprised that it's me that talks back to them. It's nobody else. Like I think that if you have a personal brand like mine, one of the things you should never delegate away is the communication and the connection to your audience, because they are why you are where you are. And there's other things you can delegate, even teaching things you can delegate, but that's the bit I'll never ever give away, because I have bought from other people who are above where I am, making more money than me, and I've bought into things and that person is nothing to do with it, and that makes me feel a bit like cheated a little bit. Like if I talk to someone and I get someone on the team and you can never get hold of that one person to ask a quick question, and I don't want to be like that. Even in my lowest tiered thing, which is my membership, which is £35, I'm in there every single week.
Well, I know I'm in your membership, and I love your Life with Lisa, the weekly input, because you do share warts and all. You share everything, the highs and lows, the behind the scenes, everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So when you changed to that strategy company, had you got this new business in mind? Had you got that, or was that just something that's come?
No. So That Strategy Co, I had the accreditations in mind. So I knew that I wanted to sell CPD accreditations for freelancers, and that was there. That I knew that would be part of That Strategy Co. Now, for a couple of years, I've had this other business in my head, just there, like sitting around, and then being too busy to do anything with it because I have a lot going on. And then I realized that actually, if I went into it with another person, if I co-founded it with somebody, then maybe we would have time to get this out there, because I knew it could be game changing. And then Karen, who is my ops director and has also been my friend for like 15 years, I saw in her that she could be a founder. And so asked her about it. She was on board. And so we were able to move really swiftly. And from me telling her about the idea to us launching it was 3 months.
Wow. So right at the beginning, when we were chatting, we were talking about the mistakes that people make. It takes time to build up a business. So tell us about the new business, because actually it's a shortcut to a business. It shortcuts all those mistakes, doesn't it?
It does. And I've always wanted a franchise, because I think with a franchise, you can help people shortcut the first 3 years, because that beginning bit, starting a business, especially if you're a business that is mentoring or coaching or, you know, anything where you're helping other businesses, you do so much in that first couple of years. You are like learning a CRM system, learning how to put funnels together, working out what your lead magnet should be, growing the audience, writing content for courses, working out what people actually want for the courses. There's this big bit. And also normally you get a coach or a mentor along the way or a mastermind to help you with all the mindset stuff that goes on. So I thought, what if we could do a franchise where we do all of that? So they can just start selling. They will still need to grow an audience, but we'll give them a funnel to grow it. And we'll tell them how to grow it. And then they can just start selling and making the money, because we'll create all of the courses and all of the lead magnets and all of the sales pages and everything they could possibly need for them. So we went to the franchise show and looked around, and there was nothing. It's like, there must be something here that people can do, but there wasn't. There was like, you could buy a KFC or a McDonald's, or you could buy a baby class. But what if you wanted to just work from anywhere, from a laptop? There wasn't anything. And so I was like, well, then I'm creating it. And that's where it came from. And so that's exactly what we've created. And every quarter we do a drop of products that people can sell. But we realized we wanted a lot in that first drop so that people could pick and choose what they wanted to sell that would work for their audience. And so we ended up writing over £100,000 worth of stuff. Sales pages and PowerPoint presentations. And it was all done in team. We didn't buy anything. Me and my team wrote everything.
That's fantastic. And that you've launched that now. You've got a founder offer out there for people that want to sign up to the franchise, and we will put the links in the show notes. Yeah. So how do you feel now? You've got that strategy co, you've got the new business, the business success company, you are still Lisa Johnson, you get a lot of speaking engagement. Do you feel as if you've been pulled in lots of different directions? And how are you going to get that time back?
Yeah, I've got Authors & Co as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I forgot about Authors & Co, yeah.
Yes, I do feel like I'm being pulled in different directions. I haven't got it quite right yet, having the team in the correct places. So at the moment, my team is doing everything for all three businesses. That's not going to work long term, but we had to start somewhere. And so the teams need to grow in all of the different areas. And that's our next project. That will then enable me to not be in some of these businesses. But it's a slow process, and I've always known it's going to be that way. At the moment, I do have people making decisions without me in each of the businesses I've got, but I'm pulled in regularly for help with things. And that's okay. That's how it's going to be for a while. But from working 30 hours a month 5 years ago, it's not that now, I can tell you. I'm working harder than I've ever worked before, but we're making more money than we've ever made before.
The problem is, Lisa, if you do step back and you do get to your 30 hours a month again, you'll just invent another business.
I know, that is the problem. People keep saying that to me. Like, Sam was like, well, you may as well work on this, because if you don't work on this, you'll just make something up anyway, which is true. Like
me, I break bones, and it gives me time then to create some
other things.
Yeah. So you fill the gaps, don't you?
You do.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you. It really has. I always ask my guests if there is one tip or piece of advice they could leave the audience with. What would yours be?
Don't care about what anybody else thinks is the biggest thing. Start living life as if you've already been cancelled. And, the only people that have a say in what you do are people that are directly affected by your life, which isn't very many people. So, you do what you want to do and stop worrying about what others think about that.
Thank you. Well, today I've been chatting with Lisa Johnson. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Woman Who Chat podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next week for more inspiration, learning and top tips. In the meantime, visit womanwho.co.uk to find out how you can start your Woman Who journey, or even feature on a future podcast. You can also join the Woman Who Achieves community on Facebook. The link is in the show notes. There, you'll get the opportunity to network, find support and make new connections with over 1,000 women in business. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's podcast. And if there are any topics you would like to hear, just get in touch with me, your host, Sandra Garlick.